Welcome to the Wedco podcast, your ultimate guide to the wedding world. Whether you're a bride, groom, or wedding vendor, this is the place to be. Join us as we dive into real stories, expert advice, and behind-the-scenes insights to help you plan the perfect day. So grab a seat and let's celebrate love, connection, and creativity together. Before we get into this episode, I'd love to ask you a super quick and easy favor. If you're enjoying the Wedco podcast, please hit that follow button on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. It might seem small, but it makes a huge difference in helping the podcast grow and means I can keep bringing on amazing vendors to share their insights with you. Thank you so much for your support. It truly means the world. Hello and welcome to the Wedco podcast. Today, back in the studio, we have Jay Geering with us. We had such a massive outpour of comments and DMs and everything like that after the last one on sales. It slightly touched onto psychology a little bit as well and mindset. And even Jay was inundated with coaching calls and everything off the back of that one. So we wanted to kind of bring this back in, focus a little bit more on mindset for this chat, and just kind of really lean into what everyone was wanting, which is amazing. But Jay, thanks so much for coming back in, mate.
Mate, it's a pleasure. And I could not agree more, because one thing I see across time, the thing that separates great entrepreneurs or great business people from those who are good is how they think. I've seen it with you in your life in terms of how you made that massive pivot simply by changing the way you thought about your business, about yourself, about what was possible. So very excited to dive in, mate. I'm in your hands, and I know today will be a really valuable episode for those watching.
Definitely. And we've had a lot of tears.
Not from us, just to clarify.
I'll just kind of give a bit of a backstory. We had a little comp run where, one person could win a chat with Jay primarily to talk about mindset and being able to unlock that to grow your business. And then we had like a little strategy call off of that as well. But I think it was like, 7 for 7 people all cried from that one? Yeah.
I think tears is not mandatory, but it's always a good sign that we're kind of cracking open the blockage, because business breakthrough is really reflected back in personal breakthrough, which is why when we had Jazz on, for example, Jazz, amazing, sharp operator, had succeeded so much more than she was even aware that she'd succeeded in such a short period of time, getting to like the top 10% of the market. And kind of reflecting that back to her, I was like, there's something bigger here. And we kind of went through an initial call to prepare for that call. And it's really fun because she said after that call, she had to kind of like take some time, lie down for an hour just to catch her breath, because it really got to the core of why she felt. She had this internal feeling that something wasn't allowing her to move forward. And very swiftly, I was able to kind of like pinpoint and touch on what I thought it was. And then we got into the session. I was like, look, Jazz, we're here to do a business breakthrough, but I think it's going to be a personal breakthrough. And she's like, what do you mean? And we started on that process. And tears, not always mandatory, but a really good sign for those that feel like they want to. But they often come without warning as well, because once you identify what it is that's really holding you back in your business, it's not tactics. It's not competition. It's not demand or the market. It's you. And if you can understand that if you are the problem, taking ownership of that, then you're also the solution. And that right there, that simple mindset shift right from the outset will unlock more possibility for your life than any external deferring of this is why I'm not growing and or succeeding and or achieving the business that I want.
Yeah. And what I've only just really honestly started to understand is that mindset comes first and then strategy comes second. And that's become really, really evident through the calls that we've had, with the other, people in the wedding industry. But even for myself, in the past, I'm kind of just looking for strategies to grow my business. And you kind of get to these little thresholds and you can't break past them. And so that was a big thing when we had the coaching call, the masterclass in December. And you were talking about different price points and everything like that, and realizing how much money I'd actually taken away from my family. That was like a big one for me. I went home and I said that to Kashia, my wife. I was like, this is how much we've taken away from our family by not having the confidence to be able to raise the prices. And like having that mindset shift for me, and then with us, having a talk as well, was what makes me comfortable to be able to start raising my prices. And a big thing around that was like, well, I need a plethora of leads. So when people say no, that's okay. We're going to keep going forward. And so ever since then, like, I mean, that was 2 months ago. And it's like for photo video, I've only been able to raise $850 on top of what I was. But already, if you look at that, like 6 weddings booked, it's still like a lot of money that compounds on top of each other. And yeah, it was really like one little thing that was said. It's crazy how that can just be like, oh, okay. And like no amount of strategies by themselves would have ever got me to that point. So yeah, it's just really starting to, it's always a thing I feel like you have to work on to level up, because you're going to reach your current threshold. You're like, cool, okay. And then it's hard to kind of go above that again. And so it's really interesting for me in this growth side of stage where I'm starting to learn and lean into this a little bit more.
The meaning of life is to give life meaning. So when we show up into business, when we start to implement the tactics of what it is we want to or think we should do to get the goal that we think we want, and that's not always accurate or aligned for most people, the reality is we bring our past neurology of how we think, how we see the world, how we function as an individual. And that is also the level of evolution of our beliefs, our perspectives, what we think is possible. And the challenge with that is it's kind of like giving a toddler a really complex problem to solve. It doesn't mean that the toddler isn't intelligent.
Yeah.
It just means the toddler doesn't have the capacity yet to understand, to solve that problem. And business is very much like that. We often joke with you, it's kind of like you strategically, very methodically solved a problem.
Yep.
Kick that can down the road, and then now the problem's here, and now the problem's there. And you've found your way to an amazing level of success in the industry. If we compare you to where you're at to the average norm, like you got there by default, but not without intention and a huge amount of pain that obviously was the catalyst for you actually starting this journey. And the thing that I think you've done really well without probably knowing it is you have been very quick to adapt your way of thinking. You've been willing to step into that place of humility, not judgment, of maybe I don't know it all. Maybe I'm the problem because I don't yet understand how to. And I did that once, it didn't work. Well, toughen up, princess, because you probably have to do it 100 times before it even works at a level that is going to get you some sort of result. So there is this internal block for most people that they are aware of. And the best way to find out where you're aware of it or maybe not aware of it is, where do you have resistance in your current life? Where's the pain? Where are you finding it hard to push through? Whether you are deflecting and kind of moving away from doing those activities, or whether you're trying to do those activities and nothing seems to be working. And in that case, what we want to do is really go in and understand what is the baggage that you've brought into your business, and we all bring it in. We all bring it in. It's like going to a relationship. It doesn't matter who you are and how much work you've done, you still have an element of history, story, of narrative of life, of what's happened to you and for you, etc. But I think the starting point is get into this position of realizing that you're not broken, but your subconscious mind is holding you in a pattern which it has habituated around at an identity level to keep you safe. We will do far more to avoid pain and potential threat, conflict, than we will to get out of our comfort zone to go towards something which there may be a potential of payoff, but relative to our risk analysis of what we're willing to do to go get that thing is really going to reflect back to our ability to actually grow and evolve. And the cool thing is, not everyone, but for most people, you just need one data point, just one piece of information that's outside your current realm of possibility to at least open up that thought process of maybe that's possible for me.
Definitely. And I feel like that comes with, and I know everyone says this, is like you are, the 5 people you hang around with the most. But it does become the truth, because if everyone is on your level, there isn't this one outlier that you're kind of looking towards and being like, maybe. And I don't even know, like, I don't know when I'm in my own traps either. You're so comfortable where you are. And I've done this a lot in the past where I will take on work that doesn't like, it pays enough that I'm like, this is amazing. Like I never thought I'd be making this money, but also it's a kind of money that you have to keep working in the business all the time. And so you have this dream, and every kid that grows up like, the world's, it's infinite possibilities, and, you could do whatever you want to do, which is true, but it's not really true if your mindset doesn't change. And I've been hanging out with a lot of like younger kids at the moment, like 18 to 21-year-olds, and they've kind of got this thing where they've watched YouTube from when they were 13, and they're watching these people that are doing amazing things on YouTube. And I'm hanging out with these 18-year-olds, and you can tell that their world is still so open, and they're like, the possibilities are endless for them. And it's crazy that like, as someone, 2 decades older, you put yourself in this own little box, and I want to do that, but also I'm never aiming high enough to ever reach those limits either. So
it's true. I've seen that across the board. And in some ways, I'm not envious of them, but the capacity that they have to believe a bigger possibility from such a young age. First client I took on at a younger age 2-3 years ago, didn't know this at the time. He was 14 years old. He jumped onto a sales call. He booked in. I'm halfway through this call, and this kid's really switched on, but he looks a little younger than I thought he was. And I was like, dude, by the way, I just need to check, what's your age? Thinking he might be like 17, 18.
Yeah.
A lot of 18-year-old entrepreneurs jumping online, making hundreds of thousands per month and or millions. And he's sitting there, he's like, I'm 14. I'm like, okay, do your parents know that you're on this call? Step number 1. Yes, my mum's in the background.
She signed off.
Is mum there? Okay, cool, mum's there. And he was doing, I won't disclose what he was doing, but like he was outperforming a lot of people who I would consider as being successful in terms of revenue per month. And yet this burden that was also there, and this is the shadow or the dark side to this sense of possibility, is if I'm not a millionaire by the time I'm 18, I'm a failure. And I'm like, slow down.
Yep.
You're 14. Don't allow yourself to miss this opportunity of being human in the process. And that's a really nice reflection to us all, is that it doesn't matter your age or stage of life. I know a lot of people get into the wedding industry, for example. They've come out of corporate roles. They're doing it because they're following a passion. So in some ways, they might feel like the younger person in the industry, even though chronologically they might be older. It's really about creating that space of humanity, of, yes, taking responsibility, but at the same time, being kind to yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, you aren't expected to know it all just off the bat. Just because you've been successful here doesn't mean that you automatically should be or can be successful here without applying a bridge that gets you to the point, because it is a different game when you're running your own business. It's not just the craft and the delivery of your art or whatever it is you're doing. It's the plethora of everything else that comes on, from running businesses, doing taxes, BASs, marketing, branding, all these sorts of things. And it is overwhelming. But I would say number 1 is step into this place of responsibility and realize that the only thing that's holding you back, the only thing that's stopping you from perfecting that particular tactic that you may need, i.e. marketing, i.e. sales, it's just a skill set. And if this person over here can do it, i.e. you, if you can learn how to do that through humility, through showing up, through doing the reps and the iterations. It's not so much just about reps, it's about iterating every single time and learning what works well, what doesn't. And that's one part skill set around the skill, but it's also one part around your own unique personality, finding out how to flow with business. If you do that well, and if you really understand that you are the block, you are the opportunity for breakthrough, with kindness, we can crack that open very quickly. And let me tell you this, focusing on the internal resistance to success, to the internal fears, the beliefs, the perceptions that we've accumulated through life, everything that happens to us is not real. It's real to us because of the unique set of filters, meta programs, the way that we function and code information in our brain. We're seeing life not as it happens, but as we are. And that's why we have people in conflict, because what they saw and understood is different from what we saw and understood. And the truth is, when you start to play into this world of, well, that belief there, that perspective there, let's gamify this. Let's work out how can we actually pretend, or what would be the opposite of that? Let's pretend. Interestingly as well, the part of the brain that codes informational memories is the same part of the brain or process that can imagine. So a memory, a piece of information from your past, is nothing more than an imagined, coded experience. Now, it really happened.
Yep.
But the equal opposite is true, that if you can code a memory, imagination, you can create a completely different possibility for your life through that ability to imagine.
Definitely. And I don't know if this ties into this at all, but you'll take a photo when you went on a trip 5 years ago, and you can so easily remember that memory because you've got like this visual cue of this is what happened here. And I do it all the time when we go on trips with the kids. We will do videos and everything, but I've got really clear like ideas of what happened there. And I feel like that's in the past I was very big into like the goals boards and the big, we used to do every New Year's Eve do our vision board for the rest of the year, like the next year and everything. And it's crazy to see what does show up years later when you're kind of trying to think about, well, where do I want this to go? And, it was never really about the house or the car, but it was like, okay, where do we want to go on a surfing holiday over here? But yeah, you can see how that really does tie in, even if you're not if you do think that's a bit woo-woo, but I think it's just bringing attention to places over and over again, then you are kind of creating that story for yourself as well.
Yeah, and removing the resistance, the expectation, because expectation in some forms is judgment. This has to happen by this date. And if I don't achieve it by this date, then I am a this and I am a that.
Yep.
It's all made up.
Yep.
It's all in your head. And interestingly, as you said, like you can put goals out there and quite often you forget about those goals or those visions and you look back 3 years like, oh, we achieved that.
Yep.
We did that. We went on that holiday. And it's something I see time and time again is that people totally overestimate what they can achieve short term, but underestimate what they can achieve over 12 months, over 3 years, over 5 years.
Yep, definitely.
So if you can remove this internal sense of pressure around achieving the goal and work out what internal program, and I'll touch on this in a second, but what internal program or belief structure is creating this resistance to this, or this feeling of failure, or this feeling of fear. If you can get into a place of neutralizing or releasing the energetic charge around that, there's a process we go through to do that. We don't have time to go through it today, or maybe we do, is a really powerful thing, because what it does, it actually allows you to let go of the intention and now get to work strategically without this kind of repelling effect that we have on goals. It's kind of like the needy partner.
Yeah.
It's not attractive, right? If we're dating in a dating scenario, and marketing is very much like dating, it's this interplay between two individuals coming together. The more that you need that partner, texting, hey, where are you up to? I need you. It's a bit off-putting. It creates like this repulsion. Repulsion, is that a word?
Yeah.
Repulsion.
Yeah.
But the equal opposite is true. If you can just relax into that interaction and allow it to unfold and create space for the other person to step in, then all of a sudden we have this lovely interplay where now there's not this tension and this pressure to succeed, to achieve, to do this. It's not this all in or all out scenario. And the flip side of that is quite often when you let go of the exact details of the timeline or the goal or the amount, we tend to surpass that. We tend to achieve it a lot quicker without the energy.
I think I want to go back to a little bit as well. I feel like the consistency is everyone's superpower. And it's like just continue to move the ball forward. And it's like it's hard because you want, like you said, especially this time of year, the start, January, it's a new year, we got to achieve all these things in the year. But it's just like, no, as long as we're moving forward and like keeping momentum along the way, it's like people talk about like being that 1% better every day and how much that does compound. It's just like little actions. This is where we're going, and always knowing at the end point, this is where we're going to. It gets frustrating because we're not there now, and I can see exactly where we want to be, but we're not there. But it's just like, just be consistent and just keep moving the needle forward, because then things they do open up. And it's like everyone doesn't actually understand, like people talk about compounding interest and everything. We know that in our brain, but no one really understands it in practice. And the same happens with money as what happens with ideas and with growth. It is just like these little things just compound on top of each other. And all of a sudden your world is exponential. And then we kind of get back to that mindset part where it's like, but are we ready to be this identity yet?
I could not agree more on one condition.
Yeah, okay.
Because you have interestedly highlighted something that's worked really well for you, but that has been within the context of you having an absolute clarity
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
around where you're going. And the biggest trap that I see a lot of people getting into is they're showing up, they're doing the work, they're being consistent on all the wrong tasks.
Yep. I've been there.
And what happens is you tend to kick the can in a circle.
Yep.
And then people are like, I've done all this activity and I've taken all these actions. And they look back at the year and they're like, I haven't progressed towards where it is I want to be or think I should be.
Yep.
Right. So I would take one step back on that and say, absolutely, consistency is the thing that across time will be the exponential payoff, just like it's been for you. But if you aren't crystal clear, and I don't mean just like projecting out into the future, this is the dollar amount, this is what it looks like, but taking a few steps back and going deep in. And this is where you do need help to do this, because we all have subconscious defense mechanisms of the mind. The role of the subconscious mind is to keep you safe, right? The unconscious programs that are encased there, your mind is unbiased to action. It doesn't know whether an action is good or bad. It just knows you've been doing this action for a long time, so let's habituate and keep doing that action. In reality, that action may not be moving the needle. So step one before that is really understanding, what do you want and why?
Yep.
At an internal alignment, neurological, biological, energetic feeling level. Why do you want that goal?
Yeah.
Why that picture? Understanding where there's a misalignment or where there is potentially some resistance that you know is there, but you can't identify what it is. Beliefs, fears, programs, patterns, behaviors, etc. And then once we crack that open to really understand, number one, what is your value code? What does alignment look to you? How do you structure your life in a way that's going to fulfill you in the process of achieving goals? And then getting crystal clear on, okay, well, let's set a goal that is realistically possible for you today, i.e. at 150K, for example, to say, let's get you to 500K. That might be such a big step that your brain switches off and goes, that's not possible. So we want to kind of find the first immediate big goal, which is within your current mental visual limitation, but at the same time causes you to reach just a little bit, that if you were just on your tippy toes, you could get there.
Awesome.
And what that does is it creates this sense of possibility, number one. And now within the construct of alignment and getting clear on what's working well and where do we need to make the iterations around. And for most people, it is how they're showing up in their business. Consistency is a big one.
Yep.
The activities they're doing that's really going to move the dial forward.
Yep.
Sitting on your computer, twiddling with your website, for example, bad activity. Overspending time on perfecting delivery, bad use of time. Working out what are the activities that are actually going to get us there. And for most people, it's very simple. It's the metrics of how many clients do I need, at what price point, around what standards in terms of I'm only going to work this number of days or this number of weddings per year. And we do the math on that. And there's always a disconnect, because quite often people want this lifestyle factor that doesn't match up with their current math. If your math is broken, your business ain't going to scale. And if it does, you're just going to scale more headaches. So really it is about peeling that all back. And I know that something you've done incredibly well is you've outsourced that help to hold you accountable and to help you get clear. You've spent, I don't know how much, but I'm thinking tens and thousands of dollars.
It's a lot of money.
A lot of money, because you've seen the importance of calling your own bullshit.
Yeah, for sure.
Of getting help.
Yep.
It's not that you're not capable. You're incredibly capable. We all are.
Yep.
Right? We all have the same capability. Maybe not everyone. We have varying degrees of personality and all of those sorts of things. But as an individual, if you're living in Australia particularly, we have so much freedom and we have choice and we have agency. And if you're in business, you have the potential to succeed, but don't waste time spinning circles trying to figure it out yourself. Go spend the money, get the help, shortcut, get the expert insight that would take you years. How do I know that's true? That was me. Until one day I got to a point where I was like, I've grown a really successful couple of businesses, face-to-face, bricks and mortar. It was hard work. There's got to be a better way. I shifted to online. This is 2014, 15. I don't know what to do here. I'm not known in this environment yet. I'm a big fish in a small pond going into a big pond not known by anyone. I went and paid my first mentor, this is back in 2014, $20,000 up front. I need help. Did that hurt? Yes. Did it help me? Yes.
Exactly.
It gave me the tools to get to my first $100,000 month.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So the investment was there, but there was no guarantee of success. The guarantee was me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. And when you know, you know. And I will loop back a little bit to the younger people, like I was talking about earlier, when I was speaking to this 17-year-old and a 21-year-old, and they're like, I just feel like I've wasted so much time. I'm like, dude, you're 17 and 21. And like that really made me reflect on, would I change anything? It's like, no, like I was a pro snowboarder from when I was 20 to 25. I traveled the world. I just did snow seasons. Like there's no way in any world I would ever give that up. But then the part where I feel like I wasted so much time was like, why did I try to do it by myself for 10 years? Like that, and that really actually frustrates me a lot, because during that 10 years, I was so into business books, self-help books. Like I was reading all the things, but then I just couldn't commit to actually getting proper help. I thought reading the books was enough. And like, I mean, it got me to where I needed to go, but I'm like, that took 10 years for what could have taken 2. Like realistically, like it could have shortcutted so much of that time as well. And so that's where my frustration really kicks in. And I think that's where my big push forward now is. Like I've given myself, I think it is a Hormozy thing as well. It's like spend 5% on your personal growth. Because like if I'm spending 20% on a podcast studio, on hiring second shooters, like all that kind of stuff, I'm spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on expenses for my business. Why would I not spend 5% on personal growth? And it's like my goal for this year is like, I want to be able to spend $50,000 this year on personal growth. I don't know where that is, what coaches that are, what programs that is, but I know that is going to get me to the next point for where I want to be. So yeah, it's just crazy how things happen like that way.
I want to loop back because I think if you know, this would be super helpful for people.
Yep.
Why did you take so long? Do you know why? What was the resistance to growth? Why did you not? I mean, I fundamentally believe that the timing of our life is what we need. So there's no, like you said, there's no ill or wrong movements. That time was purposeful for you. But I want to know, what was it that took 8 years? I'm not talking about the pain of why you pulled the trigger. But what prevented you before you were in that position of pain, child number 5, to realize, oh crap, I got to pull the finger out. If I'm going to be the provider, if I'm going to be able to step up and afford providing for a family of 7 now, like what was the why that held you back?
I think it was, okay, so I almost do have the proper rich dad, poor dad growing up. And that was probably the very first business book that I read and absolutely could not put it down, loved it. And so like, not that I had a good upbringing. We would, middle class. I went on all the school camps. My parents took me surfing over, the holidays and everything like that. Had a really good upbringing. Both worked. One was a printer. One worked as a real estate admin for their whole lives. Loved it. And like, I would kind of keep pushing back, but that's all. And they're like, no, we love it. We get to hang out with our family all the time. And that's what they wanted. And then I went with my wife, and so they had both come from, I think her mum had moved out of her house when she was 16. They'd built a business over 35 years from literally having zero money to like a multi-million-dollar company. And it was just because they had this entrepreneurial spirit behind them and being able to watch their story. And so like I kind of had, straight away, I had another second father figure over here. And I'd watch Kashia's dad. He'd be up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and he'd be working from 3 till 6 every morning. And he's reading Anthony Robbins. She went to, when she was 12, she went to an Anthony Robbins workshop, and she walked on fire and all this kind of shit. So it was like, I had the polar opposites growing up. And so I think that was the first one. Like he was definitely a big, big mentor to me. And I thought that reading the books, and I was definitely in hustle culture early on where I'd be up at 4 o'clock as well doing work. I thought that would be enough and I could do it by myself. And even though I knew Danny had coaches and had a lot of help along the way, I thought that he had done this by himself as well. So I think it was just the realization wasn't there. He just looked like he had come from nothing, and it's both of them. Yeah, they're both Kashia's parents, but like from nothing to building this multi-million-dollar company, and it looked like it was they had done it off their own bat. But I wasn't privy to the help that they had along the way to get there as well. So I think it was just that realization. if I had known, man.
So the realization, it took you 8 years to realize that they didn't do it by themselves.
Exactly.
It was them who drove it, who built it, who were up in the morning putting the consistency time in, but it was more so not understanding or fully recognizing that they had help.
Exactly.
Okay, next question. This is really powerful. You today, who has spent a lot of money on personal development, getting help, outsourcing, buying $27 courses left, right, and center, like
Yes.
you said in the workshop. What would you say? How would you convey that level of importance of outsourcing, getting help? If you could go back to yourself, let's say 7 years ago, 5 years ago, Toga has already started to learn, grow, read the books, but nothing's changing. How would you communicate what you now know, not only through their journey and story, but through what you know and the success you've had off the back of actually outsourcing, getting help? Because let's face it, it's not complex. It's not rocket science. It's very simple.
Yep.
Actually getting the right help and the right tactics when you're ready. What would you say to him? How would you convey this importance to him?
That's a really tough question.
Because I sense that was a part of him that was ignorant, but also maybe a part that was a little bit arrogant.
Yeah, for sure. And being, in your 20s, I can do this by myself. I'm following what other successful people are doing, like outwardly. I'm essentially copying and, doing exactly what they're doing. So if I do the same, 100%, like ego and arrogance there, like I can definitely be them. And I was a kid when I was 12, my next door neighbor and I, we washed cars. And I remember we booked like $30 worth of washing cars one weekend. And it was the best thing ever. Like that was from a young age. I loved business and I always had this idea of myself that is who I was going to be. I'm nowhere near actually where I have this picture of myself getting to. But then there is definitely the disconnect as well. It was like, this is where I know and absolutely feel to my core, this is where I'm going to get to. But until recently getting that help, I realized like I would never have got to that stage. And there's still no guarantee that I will, but it's definitely the forward motion it's just crazy how fast it can happen. Whereas if I just brute forced it myself, I would have got to 80 and never got to that point. I speak to my wife all the time. I was like, people talk about, if they died now, they'd be happy. And I'm like, no way. Like there's so many more things I want to achieve and do. Like I would be so devastated if I died now. And I think that just shows, how much more is possible in the expectation you have on yourself.
Yeah. Sam Ovens says it really well. For those of you who don't know, Sam Ovens is Alex Hormozi's business partner. Sam Ovens is the one who actually created School.
Yeah, okay.
And Alex came in as an investor partnership. He had this beautiful email that came out, I'm thinking like 7 or 8 years ago. And he had this whole concept of, in order to achieve what it is you feel you're capable of, or believe it at some deep core level, even on the surface level, everyday level, it's not actuating yet. He said you need to slaughter your current self. Not literally, obviously, full disclaimer, but slaughter that sense of identity of who you see yourself as being. And I don't like that word necessarily because slaughter is quite graphic, but he went through this beautiful expose of this client that he helped turn his whole life around. He was a vegan, so he got him to eat meat. He went through all this external change and internal change to really challenge him at an identity level of who he thought he was. And so I think that's a beautiful picture because in order to step into the fullness of the identity that you must become, Toga making this money with these projects and possibilities is a completely different version. You look different. I've seen photographs of you 3, 4, 5 years ago.
I just changed my Zoom picture.
You look like a hobo, right? Beautiful hobo. But if we contrast even how you look now, how you're showing up, you're a completely different person.
For sure.
Same person, but new identity.
Yep.
And I know that that's been across the board as well because you've been consistently showing up. And so I think if anyone's listening to this and they're identifying with some level of this, because it was an innocence as well as an arrogance, but quite often the arrogance is an innocence because you're not really aware of it. But to realize that we are our own worst enemy when it comes to just about every area of our life, the thing that we need to conquer is our own internal self and sense of beliefs and possibilities and fears and all those sorts of things. To realize that it is an internal game, not just at a conscious, unconscious level, but at an identity, nervous system level as well. And to find a pain that's big enough to get you to change, because it's easy to habituate. Our brains want to habituate to a level of comfort. We're not wired for success. We're wired for safety.
Yep.
And if you can understand this and realize that everything neurobiologically, unless you're like the 1% or 0.1% of people who are just like naturally outside the box, right? Most of us are geared towards unconsciously finding safety, finding routine, finding predictability. In fact, we're not judging accurately what's happening to us. We're trying to predict at every single millisecond of every single day. We are a prediction machine.
Yeah.
Oh, this person's going to do this, and if I do this, this is going to happen. Why? Because our brain needs to streamline its functions so that we can function and show up every single day. So what I would say is this: if you are at a point of, I'm sick and tired of being stuck, I feel like I'm capable of more, you need to find a trigger. The trigger for you is child number 5, which was painful, which was, okay, I'm committed, but how the heck are we going to survive off this level?
For sure.
And I think there's any number of ways you can do this. I'm not saying you have to go full pregnant. If you want to, if that's on your vision board, cool. But one of the best ways to do this is to tangibly work out the cost of inaction, of you not taking action. You was roughly 8 years. If we were to work out the difference between your income level then to now, not that everyone's motivated by money, but that's a really good motivation, to realize the money that was left on the table simply by you not getting uncomfortable, by you not taking action. I don't care what it is, but if you want to use money, what you've lost out, if you want to use lifestyle, whatever it might be, to find something that gives you the catalyst to go, wow.
For sure.
Where is my life going, in the sense, if I keep going the way that I am, if I don't achieve? We always focus on what we want, but going to the actual pain of like, what don't you want your life to look like? Really lean into the cost of that. And if that happens, how does that make you feel? And if you feel like that, what does life look like? Follow the rabbit hole down, but get help. Shortcut that process, because I cannot say this enough. The best athletes have the best coaches.
Yeah, for sure.
So why wouldn't we get the best people to help us?
And I think pain obviously starts, I think we should talk about this, like pain is the easiest way to start your progression forward. But I think we should talk about like what then and how to keep going from then. Because like I got into the point, like Sherry and I, like we're really, like our house is beautiful. It's in the exact spot we want it to be in. Our kids can ride their bike to the beach and the skate park and we don't have to worry. We've got beautiful trees everywhere. We're exactly where we want to be. Like as bad as it sounds, if that was it, I would be so happy with where our life is at the moment. Like we've ticked every single box that we wanted to get to. And so that's where pain stops working. Like I don't have that original pain anymore, and we're good. The biggest thing for me is growing up. So Kashia's and my big goal now is we have 5 kids. They're going to have kids. Our families couldn't, like, even though they've got money, they were really required in their business. So they couldn't really have the freedom to be able to come with us, like when we're having baby number 2, 3, to be able to come and hang out with us for, they would, but it's in little stints. And so our big goal is like, okay, we're going to have 5 kids. Chances are one of them's going to move to Melbourne because Byron's crap, I want to move to a city. They're going to be everywhere. And so we want to be able to have the freedom and the income that's still coming through then, that we can go and be like, cool, we can be down there for a month. We're going to help cook and clean. We're going to do all this stuff for you, and we're going to be there for you. And have that, like that is our definition of success now. That's it. But currently where we are income-wise and, financially wise, that isn't possible if we stay on the current trajectory where we're at. Short of maybe selling our house and downsizing, but we want a big house so that when the kids want to come back home and hang out with us, we are the central hub because we want to encourage that. So that's like, it's an underlying pain, but that's where I have to keep looking towards is like, okay, so another 20 years from now, we want this freedom. How do we get to that freedom?
The thing I like about that is you are future pacing out a new identity. You're already thinking about who do you want to be in 10 years, 20 years time when you're a grandparent, for example,
exactly.
And all kids are coming back. So you're right. If we're in a burning building and the place is on fire, we don't need much motivation to get up and get out of that house. But if you run far enough away, you're now no longer in danger. You've satisfied the pain response to the motivation. At that point, you really need to change gears. Exactly what you've said is start to think about the future pretense of your life, what you want that to look like, and work out that's what we want to identify with. This is what we want life to look like, and creating a natural process with steps and leverage points and income goals that achieves that. And that is about switching out of the pain motivator. Yes, we can use micro pain, right? Getting up at 4 a.m. is not pleasant. It's a micro pain to discipline us, etc. But beyond that is like switching gears out of pain towards now this is possible. Where can we fly this to? How far can we go? Like, what does that identity look like? And connecting that sense of alignment, which you've done perfectly well. Again, consciously or unconsciously aligning with your core values around family and why you're doing this.
Yeah. It's like I have to bring in, like you said, like micro pain. Like KPIs work really well for me because I know, okay, I want to hit this amount of wedding bookings per month, and then like it gives me a new goal every single month where I have to get to. And there'll be a lot of times, and I've talked to you about this, we need to delve more into it, but it's like if I book 3 weddings in the first 3 days of the month, all of a sudden I'm not really making any bookings for the rest of the month. And vice versa, if I don't book anything and it gets to the last 3 days of the month, I'm hustling to get that. So it's like kind of creating these own little, micro pains, like you said, for yourself. But then like I'll have these moments, and it is getting more and more aware, talking to you more often, is why have I said this is the goal for the month? Like, why is it not double that, or why is it not triple that? Like, how come I'm coming back to this safety number, which still feels bigger than anything I ever expected, but that isn't going to get me to this goal that I need to get to for like later stages in life. When you talk about like these clarity sessions, because everyone would know this feeling where you get this feeling of clarity, and all of a sudden your motivation is through the roof. Like it's like, because everything is so clear and you're like, boom, boom, boom. And you just have all this motivation to go. Is this a yearly thing, a bi-yearly thing? Like I know everyone's different, but if you're working with someone, what would be the ideal amount of times per year that you're really diving back into like, okay, how did this 6 months go, this 3 months go, whatever? Like, what would you say?
Yeah, great question. I mean, the first breakthrough needs to occur at the very outset of where you're currently at. Doesn't mean at the beginning of your business, but where you've hit that kind of plateau of like, oh, like I don't know where to go to from here. And it's kind of like I get the picture in my mind of those movies where someone's trying to crack a safe and they're like listening, so like it locks in place, and at that moment, like haha, and it opens up. There's this internal alignment that is unspeakable, and that's why it results in a physical manifestation sometimes of tears and or joy and or laughter and all the things that is released, because it's about the internal regulation within your body at a nervous system point. When you are operating in programs, in beliefs, in perspectives that aren't completely aligned, even if it was, let's say, 70% aligned but 30% off, the bandwidth or the pressure that puts on the bandwidth of your body makes every part so much more difficult. So from that point of view, we want to get crystal clear around where you're at in terms of that internal alignment of values, vision, lifestyle, and then reverse engineering the first big goal, the first kind of reaching point. And then of course, through that process, it's not a one-time event, because now you've had that change. Now we need to experiment through tactics around how do we now attach ourselves to and attach the right tactics, the skill set that's going to get us to where we want. And that again is part strategy and awareness, but also then trial and error, because you need to find your flow within business. But I would say definitely throughout that process, you want to be checking in like almost weekly at the start, because it's a new skill, it's a new development, it's a new way of being. And the old part of yourself is going to try and pull you back, continue, you've done really well, relax. So it's really working out the neurology of your brain. For example, I know that I work really well in sprints. 6 to 8 weeks, good. Purposefully take time out, rest and restore. And in those rest and restores, I'm checking in, I'm taking assessment of where I'm at. And like you said, it's a gamification of numbers. It's not around the emotionality that we have to money. It's really removing the emotion of the growth and working out what are my train tracks and how do I make sure that I'm on track. And you're never going to be on track 100% of the time. It's kind of like the plane flying from Sydney to LA or Sydney to London. It's like, I think 3% of the time on perfect alignment.
okay.
And it's always making little micro adjustments left and right 97% of the time, but it has its goal destination.
Yep.
And it can determine within a few minutes of an exact time when it's going to arrive. So it's this level of predictability by reverse engineering these key kind of points to confirm, are we on track or are we not?
Yep.
But then once we get towards that big goal, it's really important before you arrive. Once you arrive, you want to rest, you want to take it easy. But the problem is we need to already start to work out where to now. So definitely at least yearly, but I would say at the start, the outset, there's more effort that is required from a conscious intention point of view around that. And once you're into flow, once you start to see and feel the new results, it's very quick. Your brain has a high plasticity in that it can change very quickly. There's 86 billion neurons in your brain with an average connection of between 100 to 500 trillion connections, synaptic connections. Synaptic connection is basically two neurons that they send out a little signal because you're doing something new and, a client just paid an extra $2,000. So these little wires go out, little synaptic connection, and all of a sudden now we've got an electrical circuit that the brain can actually connect because it's now a new possibility. Now, like any pathway that you walk along, you see cows walking along a pathway, they kind of create a trodden path. Neurons that wire together, and we want to keep wiring and developing that whole impulse of like, we now need to repeat this process so that it becomes a natural way for the brain to believe and feel and anticipate. But again, change at that level is so infinitely complex, but so simple. It just takes intention. It just takes having the skill set to know how to work with yourself, hold yourself accountable, and then making sure that you continue to fire that signal of, okay, I did it once. Let's go find another data point where I can prove to myself that I did it twice. People go and try it, they fail. Maybe it wasn't true. They try again. Oh my gosh. They start to freak out, not realizing that in a pack of cards, you've got 4 aces, 52 cards. You're turning over cards. You never know when that next data point's going to come in. But if you have the absolute belief that you know there's 4 aces in that pack of cards, gamify it. That's cool. I'll get 20 no's before I get 1 yes. And next time I get 19 no's. And then I get 2 yeses in a row. Now my brain's like, whoa, hang on, settle down. And this is the process of change. It's fun when we remove the emotions. And maybe that's something we could talk on now is not the internal mindset, but how to actually mentally look at your business. Because that's a huge thing as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we were talking earlier off camera where I've said before in the past where like if someone doesn't book within 2 days, then I pretty much let them go. Like I know if they know, they know. And I've really never looked into psychology around buying cycles. And so like I've been having a little bit of more of a read lately and like understanding that like, okay, there are actual different buying cycles that couples are going through and like identifying where on that buying cycle you are and also realizing that every couple is different. And so this is where I would get so upset in the past where I've sent it, and so many wedding vendors do. They get so upset and take it so personally. That's why there's so many Instagram memes about sending off things and then people ghosting you. Like, it's okay. They were maybe just gathering information from 5 different people. They're going to go away this weekend. They're going to have a nice weekend away and they're going to look through everything and then they're going to contact those people again. But for me in the past, I have let those couples go because while they weren't ready to book me straight away, even though they just got my call to action ad and they've never heard of me ever before. So yeah, I'm starting to kind of look more into the psychology of where people are in their cycles of buying as well.
It's really important because you are not your client. And yet as a business owner who has had a history of personal failures, personal wins, personal way of doing life, we project out onto our clients how we think they should function or form, or you've sent it out, so they should reply. Why don't they reply? No. You're projecting and putting onto them your own expectations of predictability. And people are very unpredictable. They're very predictable in one sense. Like we can look at a buying cycle and know that the average person, I think we looked it up before, was like 12 to 18 months. It's the average time frame to go through and set everything up and lock in vendors, etc. And we looked at the fact that for photographers, the average was around 4 to 8 months or something.
Which is crazy to me.
4 to 8 months that's of the average. Thinking and looking and feeling. And so I know that's the average. That's not everyone. Some people are very quick and decisive and they've already got someone in mind, for example. But when it comes to competing in the marketplace, the thing that's going to stand out is not your personal branding or even your imagery or how your photos look. Because to the average consumer, if they've got a normal kind of idea of a good photograph, like another photographer could look in and go, well, that's a great photograph and that's an okay photograph.
Yep.
Most people don't see that.
Yep.
They're like, do I like the imagery? Yeah, it looks cool, looks great.
Yep.
The thing that's going to set you apart is how much they like you, how much they know you, how much they trust you. And quite often that is, again, the buying cycle of them needing X number of touch points, even to allow you into their mental space.
For sure. Yep.
You know, we were talking about this before, that I recently purchased something online, small thing, I kept getting retargeted 3 times I clicked on, even put my email in to purchase the thing.
Yep.
And I didn't. It was mouth strips for sleeping at nighttime. The reason why I didn't is because I wasn't convinced, past experience, 3 that had failed, that it would stick onto my beard.
Yep.
And they were like, we'll give you 30% off. And if you do this, it's 2 for 1. And every single time I was getting closer and closer and closer, but I never actually transacted because they never said to me the thing I was wanting to hear, which was, it even works well on beards.
Yep.
And we'll guarantee it. And they said that to me, I think it was on the 10 touch point.
Yep.
And I was like, bingo, bang, Apple Pay, boom, sold.
Yep.
So I think if you can get out of your own head and stop projecting your own emotional fears and your own emotional thoughts around should and didn't and could, and realize that this is just a game. If you can remove the emotion of business and realize that there is a game that's at play, that if you can set the expectation of, okay, cool, this person needs at least 10 touch points.
Yep.
Give or take, might be 30.
Yep.
Find out from your data, and maybe you can do some more research outside of that, of what would be a really good process that I could then streamline and automate, like you do very well with your CRM, but also input some personal touches. Like one thing you do really well is you call the lead as quickly as you can, depending on how much money you made for that month. I know you'll back off, or depending on the mood you're in. But the one thing you do really well is you'll pick up that phone. It's uncomfortable. Sometimes you're like, please don't answer, which I love the authenticity around that. But immediately after, you'll send them a personalized message with
definitely.
a video.
Yeah, every time, for sure.
And think about that.
Yep.
And what's the response rate like on
That's every single time they will get back to me, like with a message. Whereas if I would send, in the past, I'd send like just a message saying like, hey, I've just tried to give you a call, just trying to, blah, 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 blah. And I'm saying the exact same thing in my video message to what I am in the message.
Bingo.
Every single person will get back to me. Even if it's like, we're not ready yet, we're at work, you're too expensive, but they will all get back to me.
Here's why.
Yeah.
Psychology is you calling in is what you want.
Yep.
So you're trying to get something from them, which is their time.
Yep.
Now you've flipped that and you've given them your time and your effort by taking 30 seconds to a minute to do a personalized, hey, Sally, this is Toga. Think of the psychology shift. That's why they feel compelled to reply, because they're like, this guy's so nice. He just gave me a minute of his time to personalize. They're not thinking this, but this is what they're feeling. This message to reach out. Wow. And out of the 5 photographers I've reached out to, I've only heard from 2. The other haven't even responded to me.
Yeah, for sure.
And this guy already.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's why they respond. It's not that they feel guilty or they should. It's because they're recognizing that you've just given them something as opposed to wanting something from them. And you're doing the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
The only difference there is you giving your time and the perception of value around that being this essence of, hey, I'm just trying to connect because you filled this out. How can I help you?
Yep.
Which I love.
Yeah. And it works. And it's even these email like templates that I just had a look at, and the last email I think is 45 days after first contact with that couple. Currently my CRM, I close leads after 30 days. And so now I've just opened that up to 60 days to be able to include that. And it's literally yesterday I had a couple where I sent them a thing like, hey, just a quickie, like, are you still looking for photo and video? And they're like, ha, yes, we are. We're indecisive. And like just that, I would use that they were gone. They were done. And I just sent out that message and I sent it through to like 10 different people as well. I think 2 got back to me, but still, it's like could be 2 more jobs. But they just got back to me and they were like, yeah, we are. And I just said like, okay, what do you need from me to feel more like you're saying you can't commit to things? Like, what do you need from me to help that process, make it better? Yeah. They're like, oh, we just love a few galleries from this, personalized wedding place that they're getting married. And so I sent them through a few of those. Cool. And we'll touch base again. But yeah, it's crazy how you think you've got something worked out and then someone else shows you a different way and you're like, oh yeah, I could be leaving 20 weddings, 30 weddings, let them go because I wasn't following up, because I assumed if they didn't want me straight away, they don't want me. But maybe like the ones I'm dealing with at the moment, they're both doctors and they work night shifts.
Yeah.
And it's like they don't have time until they both get a shift off together, and then they're going to bulk plan their wedding on that one day. And I would have usually been like, I must have been too expensive, you know, and then that's it. So
Language is highly interpretive. Culturally, yes. Just come back from Germany. My beautiful wife is from Germany, and culturally, language functions differently there. Even the way they structure sentences and how they say things is very different from how we say things. And so if you think about a buying cycle of a customer going to the shop, what does the assistant come up to? Hey, do you need any help?
Yep.
What's the response?
Go away, like leave
I'm
me
just
alone.
looking.
Yes, I'm just looking, leave me alone.
Bugger off. But I'm there for a reason. I didn't go in because I'm killing time, particularly if you're like me and I don't really enjoy shopping. I'm there because I'm looking for something.
Yep.
I'm just looking, right? So if you can start to challenge your own interpretation of language in your head, in a sales context, my belief is no never means no. I'm talking about sales only here.
Yeah.
That when someone puts up an automated, hey, no, we're good, no, we're looking, we're this or that, what I'm understanding is no could mean anything. Hey, no, I'm not ready, or I'm not sure what I'm looking for yet. It could mean a whole number of different things, but we're programmed as humans to put up boundaries. So think about a toddler. One of their favorites words, no, or why.
For sure, definitely.
No. It's like, okay, but behind that no is a very real need of what they're trying to communicate, but they've got limited ability to communicate. So they use the one word, which is no, right? And it's the same with prospects, it's the same with leads, is realizing that you have an emotionality to the words that they're using, which are simply programmed words, to give them space so they can think. So if we can understand that when someone says no, the magic of that is in the follow-up. For example, no never means no for me in business in terms of sales.
Yes.
But it is something that if you can remove the emotion, this failure, they don't want me, am I too expensive? All this like rambling that goes on in your head that has no reality of context for why they haven't got to yes yet. Maybe they're at month 4 and they need another 2 months simply to fill data or statistics. I don't know. But what we want to understand is cool. You reach out, just like what you did. I love this follow-up. Really simple re-engagement email. Hey, Sally, are you still looking for help with this? Are you still looking for a photographer? Question mark. That's it. We're giving them a chance, and this is the whole thing, is we want to create an ability for prospects to lean in, but to engage with. And when they come back, for example, you did a really good response to her. She goes, I'm indecisive. You're like, cool. What do you need?
For sure.
And then she came back and said, well, I would really love this. And where you should have gone a couple of steps further, it's like, okay, cool. And what else do you need? Because humans won't always reveal everything, not because they're trying to hide their cards to their chest, but sometimes because they're just not aware. And sometimes they need someone to help guide them through that process, whether it's through a simple email interaction or a phone chat interaction or on a sales call. Quite often people will be ready to purchase, but they're just not even aware that they're ready. Which is why follow-up and also asking, hey, have you seen enough to move forward? I think so. Okay, cool. Scale of 1 to 10. How much do you think I can do and fulfill what it is you think you need? You're great. 10. Okay, cool. So let's move forward. Here's the next steps. People are looking for that leadership, because you need to remember, in any buying cycle, particularly a highly emotional one like a wedding, where all the knives comes out and all of the emotions, and it's like weddings and money, I don't know what it is, but there's this reality that they are in a very real need of frustration and pain, and you are there to help guide them and make this simple decision streamline and easy for them.
For sure. And I think like a couple of things, like I've got a few things. I will be on these calls or emails or phone, anything like that, and like I have this thing on my shoulder, like, what would Jay say here? And that happens so often now. I'm like, because I would usually just reply straight away with whatever comes to my head straight away. But it is cool to be able to separate yourself for a second, and then go into it as well. But the amount of times now that I will talk to a couple, I get a really good feeling with it. I tell them, I'm getting a really good feeling about this. Like, let's do this. Like I need to shoot your wedding day. Like, let's do it.
Do you know what's really good about that though?
Yeah.
You're owning the alignment of feeling in your body, which gives them permission to own it too.
Okay.
Maybe they're thinking and feeling this, but you put voice and language to what you're feeling, obviously.
Yep.
And they're like, me too.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry to cut you off, but I think that's brilliant because you speaking authentically, it's one thing you do really well is you do speak authentically. You show up with humility, like you're honest.
Yeah, for
which
sure.
serves you really well. But to cut you off, I just to say that was a really good word that you said there.
But like in the past, before we worked together, I would be way too scared to tell people that. There was no reason why I couldn't tell people that. Whether, like, does that in my head, I'm like, does that show desperation or does that show that I want them more than me? But I just go to them like, guys, I want to work together. Your wedding sounds awesome. Like, why would we not? Like, let's do this. And like the amount of times they'll be like, yeah, cool. And I was like, okay, like, what do you need from me to get this going? And they're like, well, how do we pay? Yeah, it's like, just let them guide the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, just being like, and in the past that would feel like sales to me. But as you do it more and more often, you're like, no, this is just the truth. Like, I want to work with you. I'm going to get money for doing that, but I'm going to do a good job and it's going to be an awesome day. So it's really flipping it to like, and believing that it is a win-win situation. You're going to have an amazing photographer and videographer on your day. We're going to have a great time. I'm going to get paid for my service. Awesome. Everyone's winning.
Yeah. I think a really good exercise for people who maybe have never thought about this is because we want business to be fun and profitable. Like you need to be enjoying yourself. They need to be people that you want to work with.
For sure.
So if you haven't identified who exactly your ideal market is, and then within that, maybe you could create an archetype or a demographic of like, this is what their names are. Like go back over 10 clients that you really loved and work out what was the key themes about the wedding or about the location or about them as individuals that you did, and really start to create this kind of archetype demographic avatar of this is what my ideal client looks like, feels like, transacts at this point, and this is why. You need to know why behind the what. But if you can do that, when you're on the call, what happens is you'll very quickly start to work out, oh, I really like these people. They fit my ideal avatar of who I think I'd like to work with. And that helps to remove some of the pressure of this kind of like sales. Oh, I need the sale. It's worth $5,000 or worth $10,000. Like people can feel that. And if you can lean in authentically and go, hey, I like you. And I think you like me based on what the feedback you give me around this and this and that. I'd love to work with you. Like that is so authentic and so aligned because it's coming from a place of, and by the way, the flip side of, if there's someone you don't like, you should close that call. You need to be willing to say no to clients and or jobs and or money that isn't completely aligned, because the better you get at doing that, every no is now space for a new yes to come into. And people are afraid to say no because they're giving up something good for something that's really aligned, that will actually bring them fulfillment and success at the same time.
And that is a hard one to follow that advice if your business isn't doing well. Like it's a joke in the past, like there's work weddings and then the weddings are like a portfolio that you love that are on brand, exactly what you want. And as it's crazy, like as I've booked more weddings, more of those weddings are my ideal weddings, and there has been less work weddings. But in the past, when you're like scraping by trying to get anything, you're like, 100% I'll take your money because I don't have anything booked. And so it even changes the type of people that are gravitating towards you as well. And I mean, I don't have a psychology kind of explanation for that, but it just has shifted where it must be the desperation fact of it, like kind of does seep through and people can feel that.
Abundance always creates more abundance. That feeling of success always creates more success. And so I think you pointed out a really good thing is if you don't have the luxury yet of choosing every single people you like, because let's say you only are currently attracting 20% of those people right now, maybe that's part of your goal set, that each year you set out and say, okay, I want 50% of my weddings to be love weddings. And I'm willing to take on the other ones because they're serving a bigger goal. And your expectations are different around that experience and those people. But I think as a goal set, the magic kind of like trifecta element of like getting to that pinnacle point is the right people at the right price that are really aligned with how you want to do business. And that's something you can aspire towards, but you can strategically get there as well. And I think having the eternal awareness and then when you do book those work weddings because it's serving a bigger goal, like you're getting more money to put into ads to go find more of those people.
Exactly right.
Don't take the expectations into that wedding that it needs to look like this.
Yep.
Like change your expectations and go in with this thing of, okay, this is the purpose of this wedding. I'm still going to show up 100%.
Exactly.
But to remove it, I think when you can gamify this process and really manage your own expectations and emotions, if you're an artist, I don't know if this is true for a lot of photographers, but being a recovering perfectionist, like everything in my life needs to be here. And it's this continual battle of like, okay, cool, that's the ideal, but that's not the reality. Like life is not perfect.
Yep.
People are looking for the perfect plan, for the perfect formula, for the perfect sequence of events. And the reality is look back at your life. How much of your life has worked out exactly the way you want?
Yeah. Yeah.
3%,
Exactly. Yeah.
5%. The rest has been a redirection, a beautiful, chaotic redirection of alignment and growth and understanding and challenge and struggle and success. But that is life. So if you can lean into that with your work in particular, even to the level of like editing work, that's another whole topic another day, and working out what am I okay to transact on at, because 100% is never 100%, it's 101, it's 102. It like continually increases to the point where you're burning out, you're not happy, you're not fulfilled, and you're like, maybe I should just go back to that corporate 9 to 5.
Yep, definitely. And then like last thing I think we should touch on is even at the moment I've got say 3 different lead sources. I've got straight call to action on say Meta that comes through, like they didn't know me before this, but now they've filled out a lead. I've got people coming from my website that are coming from awareness, still like from awareness ads or through organic, and they're coming to my website, they're looking through the whole website, then they're applying through there. And then also from Instagram, people are coming in, they're following, I'm sending them a message like, hey, what's up? Just wondering, like, are you here for the pretty photos or are you looking for a photographer? And I find the psychology between those 3 different people is very different. And also my expectations on them and their expectations on me are very different as well. So, I find Instagram super friendly. They're just like, and it's like, there's no way I'm pitching anything about myself early on. I was like, hey, just want to know about your day. It's almost like, just giving them information, and then they're like, yeah, we're looking for a photographer. I'm like, oh, cool, awesome. Like, do you want to jump on a chat? And then they will book in a call straight away. But it's funny how, different lead sources can be very different outcomes, how they come through to your system.
Maybe we talk about that being like, you got 3 different kids and they're all your kids.
Yep.
But they have different needs, different personalities in terms of how they're showing up. And I think that analogy there, I love to think in metaphors. It's like, how do you pivot your parenting to make sure that you're nurturing and connecting with those kids differently?
Yeah, for sure.
And you might have a preference, not in kids, but in terms of leads that you want to work with. But there's an opportunity still to work out, okay, well, that's cool. How can I pivot here? How can I shift that? I think it's a really good point to realize, because leads are not all the same. They're treated equal in the sense of they're there because they have a wedding and they're looking for a videographer or a florist or whatever it might be, but they're highly unique.
Yeah.
And where they come from, like you said, it's a really good point to pivot your game, your strategy with how you're speaking, and realizing that some of those lead sources like Instagram, they are probably more warm. They've seen your content. They like you. They're coming in a little bit warmer than someone who might be off an ad.
Yes.
That knows who you are a little bit, but they know nothing about you.
Yeah.
They don't know much about they haven't been following you for 6 months, for example, and working out how to sell. And what I would say is across the board, but varying degrees, authoritative type selling is one of the best styles, not to push people, but to really lead people. People are looking for leaders in business and in life. They're looking for someone that they can trust.
Yep, for sure.
So if you can establish that rapport, build that trust as quickly as you can, but lead them. If you can condense that buying cycle down from 8 months to 6 months, you've just saved them 2 months of open loops and headaches.
Exactly.
It's always about how can we solve this problem in the best way for them that gives them the outcome, the goal they want, but also serves me in the process so that I'm happy, that I'm getting the money I need and want to grow my business, to have the impact that I want, and ultimately create the lifestyle that I'm looking for.
Love it. And then, okay, so we've opened up the school group just recently. It's gone live.
Yeah.
So the goal for podcast episodes moving forward is we are going to have 10 to 15 minutes behind the paywall of the school group, because we want everyone to kind of come into there, be part of the community. We're going to have live masterclasses, Q&As, But more so, we just want people to kind of be a part of the wedding community who are actually ready to grow their business as well. So we'll finish this episode here. But after this, we're going to keep talking about the different ways that we can be approaching organic through, say, like Instagram versus cold leads coming through versus other emails coming through. And like we can talk about the different ways that we would approach each different lead and cater to their needs.
Yeah.
But sorry, go.
I would say to that as well is that the last thing that you need is information.
Yeah.
The internet is full of information. You are at a state where you probably need transformation and or mentoring. You need wisdom to know, how do I put this together? And that's the purpose of the school group. Obviously, if you're coming for free information, this isn't the group for you. It's a very low cost of entry to get in and be part of a growing community where the value, the connection, the understanding, the access to us is going to be invaluable. If you're at a point where you need breakthrough, feel free to reach out to me directly, reach out to Toga, and by all means, if you have any questions, reach out to us at any time.
Beautiful. And they can lock in like a clarity call with you. And
clarity call, if you feel like you need a business breakthrough and or clarity session around what is it you're actually doing and creating, reach out to me. It's my area of expertise. I don't need long to understand very quickly what it is that's missing and or needing in your business and also your personal self. So reach out to me. It will be the best 1 to 2 hours of your life. It will be inspiring. It will be challenging. But I guarantee you this, it will bring about a level of clarity and momentum, unlocking energy like you've never felt before.
Love it, mate. And I'll put up some testimonial videos from the last ones as well, just so people can kind of get an idea of what they're in for. Maybe, I don't know, fast for 24 hours beforehand, or just come like really prepared because you're going to dive deep. But yeah, Jay, thank you so much for coming back on.
My pleasure.
And if you want to see the rest of this episode, jump through to the school group and we'll have more about how to nurture different types of leads.
Beautiful, mate.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for tuning in to the Wedco podcast. If you love this episode, don't forget to subscribe, follow, and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave a review or connect with us on social media. New episodes drop every week, so be sure to join us next time for more wedding inspiration, tips, and stories. Until then, happy planning, and we'll see you soon.